Hey, what you reading for?
Hey, what's up YouTube? Michael here talking books, literary, horror, classics, and contemporary. Top 10 books for weirdos. Not necessarily weird books, but books that I think weirdos might appreciate. So, if you find that you are frequently talking to someone and that person's eyes will suddenly get real big as they slowly back away from you and out of the conversation, or if you've noticed that when a friend introduces you to someone, that friend will often include some kind of explanation of you or a preemptive excuse. If that's you, I think you are likely to find more than a few of the books on this list appealing. Also, 9 different countries represented on this list, so that's nice. And I'm ranking these books based on how much I enjoyed them. Now, I've enjoyed all of these books, but to varying degrees. So, from one weirdo to another, maybe you can help me out. Give this video a like. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I'll run a short intro sequence, and I'll see you on the other side for my top 10 books for weirdos. Let's start things off with A Golden Shower. Incidentally, worst Pilates class ever. The Golden Shower, or What Men Want, by Luka Novak from 2008. Luka Novak is Slovenian, a bit of a celebrity in Slovenia. He used to host a TV show about discovering Slovenian cuisine. He's like a Slovenian foodie influencer, SFI, as it's known in the biz. This book represents his foray into fiction, and it is about a secret society funded by a billionaire that is trying to orchestrate a revolution by creating or recreating famous works of art, but making them slightly more pornographic. Luka Novak is a man of imagination. We have to give him that. There were times in this book that it got so zany that it felt like I was reading a cartoon, but other times it felt like a traditional novel. And I liked the way that the novel is paced, the ebb and flow of the chaos and absurdity. Next up, The 14-Karat Car by René Rehite from 1940. This book is a classic in Hungary. What? When I first arrived in Hungary back in 2017, I'd meet writers and readers and people in general, and I'd ask them to recommend a Hungarian author or Hungarian work in translation that I should check out. And this book, The 14-Karat Car, came up frequently. It's got a slapstick vibe to it. It's about a man who gets tangled up in a scheme to steal a car that is made of gold in order to finance a coup in an African country. Part thriller, part romance, but mostly quick-fire vaudeville humor is how Goodreads puts it. This one definitely felt like I was reading a cartoon. It's silly and irreverent. For the right reader in the right mood, a Hungarian classic. Next up, Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi from 2013. A scavenger in US-occupied Baghdad collects body parts from the car bombings and stitches them together to form a corpse. He wants the government to recognize the parts as people and give them a proper burial, but the corpse goes missing and goes on a killing spree. Not a horror novel and not a silly novel either. It plays its premise straight. But the characters in this book, the people living in occupied Baghdad, they have so many other things to worry about that the absurd premise blends in rather seamlessly with its surroundings. Interesting, well done, and it comes in on my list at number 8. At number 7, Ancient Lights by Davis Grubb from 1982, the last of 10 novels Davis Grubb would leave us. It was my first experience with Davis Grubb's writing, and when I read this book, I said to myself, I have to read everything this writer has ever written, which turns out is 10 novels and 3 short stories. So after reading Ancient Lights, I went back to his first novel, Night of the Hunter, and started from there. I've read 7 of the 13 books. He has become one of my favorite authors. He was dying when he wrote Ancient Lights, so he wanted to leave us with something memorable and meaningful, presumably. Set in the then near future of the early 1990s, where the US is under an incompetent authoritarian regime. We have a protagonist, a young woman who has to save her father, though she's confident that it's actually her father who is going to save her. And she stops along her quest frequently to have sex with fairies. This book is hard to describe. Think Salman Rushdie meets the Looney Tunes and they go to a sex club to discuss philosophy. It is gorgeously written, lots of purple prose that some readers might find pretentious, but I found it more tongue-in-cheek. Also, I don't mind pretentious as long as it's beautiful and whimsical, which this book is. At number 6, The Woman Who Wrote the Bible by Brazilian author Moacir Scliar from 1999. And as I understand it, it will be released for the first time in English in March of next year. I was living in Brazil shortly after this book came out, and it was recommended to me. I read it then, but it has since been translated into Arabic, Italian, French, and Spanish, and starting next year also in English. A girl who is so ugly that no one will marry her. Her father can't give her away. So instead of being the prize in one of her father's business transactions or political alignments, aka what marriage was at that time, she devotes herself to non-women activities like reading and writing. She's so good at it that she ends up writing the Bible. Or actually, she copies it because there were no printing presses at the time, and there were not many people who could read or write, and arguably nobody who could read or write as well as this girl, this hideous, grotesque, nauseatingly ugly girl. It's plot-driven historical fiction, emphasis on the fiction. It was a fun world to spend some time in. The protagonist is likable. I was rooting for her right from the get-go. That ugly, ugly girl. Next, Historias de Chronopioamas from Argentinian author Julio Cortázar from 1962. This collection is from the more absurdist, experimental phase of Cortázar's career. It is divided into 3 sections. The first section, my favorite, is an instruction manual that tells you step by step how to accomplish specific tasks, such as retrieving a strand of hair that goes down a drain. The second section describes obsessive people and their unusual occupations, while the third section gives the world over to naive, idealistic eccentrics. Highly inventive and enjoyable. This is my favorite collection from Cortázar, which not only makes me a weirdo, but potentially a pretentious weirdo too. So I've got that going for me. At number 4, The Doctor is Sick by Anthony Burgess from 1960. Wow, the 60s were a good time for weirdos, it would seem. The Doctor is Sick is the first book written by Anthony Burgess after he received a bogus brain tumor diagnosis.
It's not a tumor.
He knew the diagnosis was bogus. Still, that did not stop him from imagining a linguistics professor, such as he was at the time, who is sent to hospital to undergo surgery to remove a brain tumor. The professor is scared, so he escapes the hospital, and he, along with a few other escapees and randos they pick up along the way, they set off on a zany adventure through the more colorful neighborhoods of London, where the professor sees the subject of his expertise, dialects and patois of working class neighborhoods in London. He sees them not in an academic setting, but in real life, and he is fascinated and he has fun. I love Anthony Burgess, how he plays with the language, the curiosity and joy he brings to his investigation and into the little worlds and communities that he creates, largely through the appropriation of language. And while A Clockwork Orange or The Wanting Seed are the standouts from his catalog, I think, I do also think that this earlier offering is quite good and worth checking out, especially if you're a weirdo. Next, A Charming Mass Suicide by Finnish author Arto Pasalina from 1990. Two depressed men hire a camper and set out across Finland, headed for these famous cliffs that they plan to throw themselves off of. They think their plan is so great that they decide to place an ad in the classifieds asking if anyone wants to join them. They get a lot of responses, so they go around Finland picking up these people and to take them to these cliffs. But as they're driving around the country, they discover that they have more in common than their sadness, and when they do eventually get to the cliffs, they opt for a picnic instead of their original idea. Light, quirky, humorous, and human. Very Arto Pasalina. This book has been translated into nearly every language except English for some reason. But if you're one of those weirdos who reads in other languages in addition to English, I would highly encourage you to check out Arto Pasalina if you haven't already, and A Charming Mass Suicide, I think, is a great place to start. At number 2, Mother Howl by Craig Clevenger from 2023. Icarus falls to the earth wearing his monkey skin suit, which is what he calls being human. He is such a funny character, offering comedic relief and a sense of the mystical in this story, which is mainly about the son of a serial killer who, as an adult, must reclaim his past if he is going to give his newly formed family any kind of a future. I love me some Craig Clevenger. This is his third book after The Contortionist's Handbook and Dermaphoria, both amazing books as well. He deserves more love and attention than he is getting on YouTube. I, for one, am doing my part, and you can too. Like and subscribe. And my number one selection as a book for weirdos is actually a book for book lovers. But book lovers are, by definition, weirdos, aren't they?
Well, looks like we got ourselves a reader.
If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler by Italo Calvino from 1979. A book about the joy of reading, about being sucked in by a story, almost to the extent of being obsessed to finish it. Our reader, the protagonist, buys a fashionable new book, but after 30 or so pages, he discovers that his copy is corrupted and consists of nothing but the first section repeated over and over again. So he returns to the bookshop where he discovers the volume he thought was by Italo Calvino is actually by a Polish writer named Bazakbal. And given the choice between the two, he goes for the Polish author, as does the other reader, Ludmilla. But this copy turns out to be yet by another writer, as does the next, and so on. Interspersing stories of spies, mystery, and premonition, if on a Winter's Night, a traveler explores the how and the why we read and how we extract meaning from stories. If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler, dazzling and deeply romantic, and it earns the top spot on my list of top 10 books for weirdos. What do you think of my top 10? It's pretty good, right? Do you have any experience with the books or the authors I talked about in this video? Are any of the books I mentioned making it onto your TBR? I always enjoy connecting with you in the comment section. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next video.